This is Dr. Vaishali, and I'm reading from the book Substance of Homeopathy, book written by Dr. Rajan Sankaran. Chapter 2, the story of this book. The purpose of this introductory is to lead the reader from the idea expounded in the spirit of homeopathy to the most recent development in my understanding and practice of homeopathy. This introduction's introducer or a lead. What is introduction? It means in intro, introducer, or to lead is essential to those who have not read the earlier book and will serve as a revision to those who have already done so. I have thought it best to give some expert from the spirit of homeopathy as a summary of this book, but would advise the reader to study the book itself and familiarize himself with the concept of detail therein. Uh, as a student of homeopathy college, we found the homeopathic materia medica very dry. The repertory mechanical and the philosophy is theoretical and absolute in theoretical and absolute. In fact, philosophy was our worst subject because we could not relate it in any way to the practice. We found the lectures so boring that we had literally to be dragged into them. This was just the beginning of our trouble. When we started our practice, we found different school of thoughts, different way to look at homeopathy. Some practitioners were giving combination of the medicines and some were giving specific. Some were looking only at pathology. A few were basing their prescriptions upon keynotes, and others were using the repertory. Among the last group, some were using Kent repertory method and other work with a bogus, and select few were following the Bonning-Hussens. Some gave importance to miasm while others criticized them. This situation only added to our confusion. First steps. Once I got out of the college, I started working with the repertory because of prior familiarity with it, and I started repertorizing cases mechanically. I was trying to use the characteristic and peculiar symptom mainly because there are less remedies in this rubric and which made repertory work easier. I would choose a few characteristic symptoms, look at the relevant rubrics in the repertory, and prescribe the medicine which was common to them. In some cases, it is work, but in many of them were failed. I remember one early case of mine. My grandmother had difficulty in swallowing and took her symptom potatoes, dysentery, and choking esophagus on swallowing. And from this, I came to the remedy alumina, which helped her wonderfully. However, in many cases, this approach failed, and so I poured all my energy into the search of method which would prove a success in every case. I knew that the clinic was the best laboratory I could find and scientific mind the best tool. The one principle I have adhered to throughout is to use only one remedy or therapeutic method at a time, and I have tried to keep everything as constant as far as possible. This has helped me a great deal in a validating my observation. Now, under label Precedence of Mental and Journals. Together with my colleague Dr. Jayesh Shah, I started studying our cases of success and failure. What became quite obvious was that those cases in which we prescribed on mentals and journals were much more successful than those in which we had relied upon particular symptom and used the pathological as the basis of our prescription. We look at this idea purely from a practical point of view without really understanding the reason for it and started trying it out cautiously in some of our cases. I still remember an early case of vitiligo given in detail chapter under central disturbance. I could not get any symptom from this lady except for my observation that was she was a very humorous and talkative person, and also she was warm-blooded and liked to walk in the open air. Repertorizing the symptom: loquacity with jesting, walking in open air emulate, and warmth in general aggravate. I found the remedy Kali iodatum, and however, Kali iodatum was not even mentioned under the rubric skin discoloration white spot, I was in a dilemma. Will this remedy work or not? So far, we had been selecting a remedy based on the mentals and journals, but we also made sure that the remedy covered the local presenting problem as well. This was one of the first cases where the pathology was just not covered. I decided to take a chance by ignoring pathology and gave this lady a Kali iodotum. The remedy worked beautifully. I started asking some questions to myself. Why did it work? How did it work? How could the remedy cure something which is not known to be capable of causing or curing it? What was the principle involved? At this time, I suddenly realized that when a remedy is potentized beyond 12C, there is no one molecule of the original substance left. What remains is only the energy. Since there no material substance left, it cannot cause any material changes in the body directly. It can cause no physical, physiological, or chemical changes in the body. It can only cause dynamic changes. The sentence that came to my mind was potentized remedy have a dynamic effect only. This sentence was a door to the totally new look at the homeopathy and my first steps to real understanding of disease. What exactly is dynamic disturbance? This was the question, and we had seen in our practice that remedy that covers the mentals and journals cure the pathology, even if it is not mentioned in the Materia Medica. We found that in the patient, it is the mentals and journals that are common to most patients of the particular remedy, whereas the particulars or local symptoms differ from person to person. Now, under label central disturbance, so the general disturbance means the represent mainly by mentals and journals. The central disturbance, as we call it, comes first, and this is followed by change in the various organ system depending upon each individual pathological tendency. And pathology grows on the central disturbance like creeper on a stick. What we have to do is to remove the central disturbance. Now, under the label component, rubrics and connected by the situation. My understanding progressed further when I started asking the question, what is the mental state? I then got the clue that understanding the mental state of a person is different from the listing his mental symptom. Initially, I tried to understand the mental state of the patient and remedies in terms of essence or cause, but found that the core did not seem to cover the whole remedy. That is a time when I conceived the idea of understanding remedies in terms of component. Take for example the symptoms predict the time of death. In the remedy as aconite, immediately two things become clear. One is that aconite has a fear of death, and secondly it has the ability to predict, means they are clairvoyant. These two components together make symptom predict the time of death. In this way, I started studying remedies as a characteristic combination of the component. This idea helped me greatly in practice, but then came the questions, are these components merely unconnected phenomena, or is there something in the background which connect them? A hint of existence of such background connecting symptom can be seen in the study of fluoric acid. In fluoric acid, there are a component like indifference to loved one, yet talk pleasantly with a stranger. Another component is increased sexual desire, and third is lack of morality. If we look at these three aspects, they seems at first sight to be unconnected. But how we could ask, is increased sexual desire connect with the indifference to loved one? One situation can explain all these components, namely when a man finds that he has married someone totally unsuited to him and need to dissolve the marriage. In such a situation, he need to develop an indifference to the family, to become irresponsible and have increased sexual desire along with the sociability. I looked into the repertory and found the rubric delusion marriage must dissolve, and the only remedy given is fluoric acid. Such observations create a new wave of thinking in my mind, and I postulate that components of the state are not unconnected. The connection is that all of them are needed in one particular situation. A corollary to this is that each remedy represents a particular situation and that each patient's state also comes from the particular situation in the past in which the component of the present state were necessary. From this observation, the idea of disease as being survival mechanism in a particular situation became clear. The concept of situational materia medica was born. Now, on a level root of diseases. As thinking along this line progressed further, I saw that even a children with no special past situation have state and that adults too have states which cannot be explained on the basis of past situation in their lives. I came to the conclusion that this state may have been inherited from the earlier generation. When I look at case in the new light, I found a very striking resemblance between the state of the mother during pregnancy and the state of the infant. I also found similarity between the state of the parents at the time of conception and the state of the child. This is how the idea of root of disease developed. Root are tendencies which when excited manifested as a specific state of disease. These tendencies are impressions from the specific situation in the from the previous generations and make a person feels and react as if he is in that particular situation. It is called delusion. Now, under label delusion, what they really mean. I also realized the importance of the section on delusion because a delusion is a false perception of the reality and disease too is a false perception of the present. The whole mental state of the person is an expression of false perception, that means delusion. Now, under label understanding the mental state. With all this understanding, I tried to find more way of understanding the mental state of the person and evolve some techniques. One was use dreams since the theme of dreams represent the prominent component of the state of the dreamer. I also studied the way the patient express himself and how he relate to the people around him. Such technique become an integral part of my practice. With new perception in my practice, many ideas were generalized. These include idea about remedy relationship, the situational materia medica of several remedies, and ideas about the pathological and homeopathical prognosis. Much more importantly, however, I could look at the questions of what is really means to be a healthy. This could be related not only to homeopathy but the philosophy in the general. Now, on the label higher purpose of life. Health, I realize, was man's freedom to be in the moment and fulfill the purpose of life. I could not appreciate Hahnemann's vision that man, like all creature, is an instrument of the spirit and assign a specific purpose by it, mentioned in the aphorism 9 in organon. Disease comes in the way of the organism's ability to fulfill the purpose. Since it doesn't allow man to react to the present, it makes him react according to situation from the past. Cure is the restoration of the health. It is achieved by the man becoming aware of his false perception of the reality. This is made possible through exposure to his delusion. This is the basis of the law of similar on which homeopathy is founded. Practice became more simple. Materia medica came alive and repertorial rubrics took on a new meaning. Philosophy, which earlier we had to be dragged into, become one with the spirit of life itself. Now, sharing insight. Each chapter deals with the specific questions. Each idea in this book seems to so obvious to me now, but to get to it was a struggle. In practice, an idea or questions would flash into the mind. Then came sleepless nights while the mind grabbed with the problem. Some solution would appear, and this had to be tested the very next day, case after case. Practice, a strict and impartial judge, mercilessly shatter some of your most careful constructed theory. The idea that stood the test of practice were subjected to further scrutiny, further observation were made, and then I could go to the next step. Just like a mountain climber who makes sure of his foothold before going higher. Step after difficult step, I came close to the understanding of homeopathy. I wanted to share all this insight with a student who might face the same difficulty that I did. It was with this aim that I gave a series of seminars in the Europe and India between 1986 and 1990. I had made some notes for this seminar, which together with some more recent insight, I have now put together and gives shape to in the form of this book. It is possible that what I say may not be new, but to have knowledge of and on the other hand, to actually experience and strongly feel something as correct and true are two very different things. If you read through all the chapter, I think that you will get a fairly accurate view of my thoughts and approach. As each chapter was written independently, there is a bound to be some repetitions and lack of sequence. I must also add that even though my perceptions of homeopathy has become much clearer, still I have the feeling of having seen only the tip of the iceberg. I therefore make no pretense that this book is either complete or final. At best, I can say I have made an honest attempt to tell you that the story so far. My aim in doing so is to stimulate the reader to make his own observation and develop his vision. I am confident that in doing this, the wonderful spirit of homeopathy will touch you. Truth has the quality of striking deep within.